Chronometry calibrated. The gateway will open in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Analyzing data. Likelihood of parallel universes now at 21%. Continuing analysis of the many worlds hypothesis.
The distance between what is imagined and what is produced has become an abyss. Of all the things at risk, the loss of actual news stories is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of originality is the ultimate victory of corporations. When originality leaves us, when we let it slip away, when it is ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever franchise screams the loudest. The monster we've helped create, the monster who will come for all of us soon enough, is Bob Iger. Welcome, everyone. I'm Gayfish. Joining me, as always, is the lovely DemonMama.
Hello.
And Moss.
Hello.
And today we'll be continuing our discussion of Andor Season 2 with the funnest arc, the genocide arc, the just good fun, good, solid, clean entertainment. And full disclosure to the audience, this is our second attempt recording this, so if we're referencing things that we thought we covered or not, that's why there's confusion. But thank you, Wave Room, for losing half of DemonMama's audio.
Yay.
Well, I don't really know why it happened, but here we are. So,
So here we are. Moss, how'd you like this arc?
Yeah, that's a great place to start because I feel like I was sipping on the haterade a little bit when we recorded last. And so I'm almost kind of grateful that we have an opportunity to go over it again, because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna rewatch them. I said it kind of as a joke in our group chat, like I'm gonna watch them and try to enjoy them more this time, and I succeeded in enjoying them more. I'm gonna be clear, I didn't hate the part that I hated any less, but I did find more to like about it this time. Yeah, I guess, I mean, I think we started with like a little bit of chronologically, just because that's how it makes sense to me to go, is like we started with the first episode, which I said previously, like, okay, I can barely remember anything that happened in the episode except for the faith healer thing, which I hated.
A lot of setup.
It's a lot of setup, but
it is
like,
a lot of setup.
Good stuff with the Gorman front. I think we get I think the setup there is enjoyable. Good stuff. Lazine is like my favorite character, like my favorite.
So great, isn't he?
Yeah, like my favorite side character in this arc, and yeah, that's all I remember about that episode.
Yeah, that first episode was like, it is probably the weakest episode in my opinion of this season, but it's not, I don't think it's bad necessarily. I just think that it's like, it feels like they didn't know exactly like how to structure everything with the rest of the arc structure. If I'm not wrong, in the first season, this is where we had like a weird break in the arcs, right? There was that like middle episode. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, because episode 7 in season 1 was kind of like a standalone in between, and then we had the prison arc after that.
I feel like it does set up the prison arc, but you're right that it's almost like, yeah, just like not a filler, but a setup episode.
Yeah, the Niamos, right? Is where it is, right?
So it's in that area, but yeah, so I guess that's a fair comparison. So, okay, since we're on this first episode, and Moss, you already brought up the faith healer. Yeah, like, I understand that this is Star Wars and that the Force exists, but when you're talking about the tone that a show sets, Andor has been so grounded in its politics of human nature that it feels almost like a betrayal of that premise to come in and show a Force healer having like a genuine insight into Andor's ultimate destiny of, finding the Death Star plans. And I know that destiny exists in Star Wars. It's been very clear that that's the case, but it kind of is antithetical to the show's premise. Like you think of Nemec's manifesto, where he goes in about, how like resistance is something that arises spontaneously without instruction. It's not like, this person was destined to go be. No, like just things happen and people meet the moment because that's where they're at. And then on top of that, you've got the whole issue of you can't get away from the comparison to faith healers, because that's what she is. She's a faith healer. It's just that in the universe of Star Wars, her faith is justified because the Force actually exists. But in reality, faith healers are charlatans who prey on sick people and don't make them better. And I feel like giving any kind of credence to that in an otherwise so like philosophically grounded show is kind of like bad.
It's a stumble. I think I agree with you. It's a stumble in my opinion, and it feels very out of place. I didn't mind it as much the first watch through as I did upon later watch throughs, and I think perhaps in the second watch through, my hatred of Wikipedia lore consistency, blah blah blah, like it got sharpened. When I was the first time through, I was just kind of being like, this is great. And then I was like, they got to put their stupid Force stuff in there. And, you got to put in all the whatever. And to be clear, I don't hate the Force at all, or like I don't mean like, in the universe or in the way that it's used in a lot of Star Wars media. Rogue One has a lot to do with the Force, and I think it's great. I feel like Rogue One, I actually recently watched Rogue One, and we're going to watch it again, but I watched it again because I really love that movie. And I was just like, the Force aspect of Rogue One is a fully explored element of that movie. It was like made with that, and with a discourse on that being like, this is one of the ways that these people can find hope. It's for this person, it is a guiding force, and it also facilitates his connection to others, that the force manifests itself as this like brotherly plus, maybe, I don't know, love between these two guys that
we can get into that when we get to the movie.
But it's what I mean. It's integrated as a part of what the movie is talking about, and that really does not feel the case here. It really feels like this is kind of just dropped in as, okay, we have to establish this because we know it's got to plug in to the rest of the Star Wars universe and also to Rogue One. And it does feel kind of, frustrating in how it undermines the way that they've sold Andor to the audience as a character. That, we see him make his way, and this this continues in the other arcs, that we see that, like, it's not that he's some chosen hero. It's that he makes decisions that are considerate of other people and considerate of the greater whole, that he has this driving force that leads him to constantly be this sort of iconic rebel character, but that he's not alone in that there are all these different angles, and he's just one spectacular example of that. And it kind of undermines that to have this faith healer character come in and go, oh, I've seen your future, you're the reason, like, you must proceed, and all this kind of, like, I don't know, I agree with the idea that it just doesn't work very well.
I mean, we're going to mention it probably more than once, so I'm just going to get it out of the way that this is a show that was originally slated for like 5 seasons. And so they're truncating things a little bit. And so like some of the things that are happening here are happening because they need to happen. And like, that's something that I am bothered by with multiple different things, especially in this arc, like, because this arc is setting up things, and this whole show ultimately ended up being like set up for Rogue One. Like, instead of being its own thing, I feel like if it had a little bit more room to breathe, like 1 or 2 more seasons, it's like, it's just something that, we have to try to convince Cass to do this thing because he needs to do it, like, for the plot. So how do we convince him to do it? Like, well, try to push him from as many angles as possible, and like ultimately kind of force him to stay with the rebellion. Like, I don't know. I don't like it. Honestly, like, this half of the season is just not good to me.
One thing too, given the conversation of Andor as like a piece in a larger franchise, and how it might mesh or conflict tonally, is that not every piece of Star Wars media is meant to be consumed all in one sitting. Right? Like, This is a franchise that on one end has Andor, and on the other hand has Young Jedi Adventures. And I don't think anyone is expecting. I think there was a commenter on one of my videos who pointed out that they felt like Andor felt out of place in Star Wars, because here you've got Young Jedi Adventures where they've got like a cute little like teddy bear character. And I'm just like, okay, but cute things and fascism also exist in the real world. It's just there are a variety of tones, and you don't have to consume them all in one place. But then I thought of a counter to that, in that this episode ends basically with a handoff to rebels, because when Cassian goes and rescues Mon Mothma, and they have the whole conversation, like, oh, you're not going to be the one to deliver her to Yavin. We're heading her off to Gold Squadron. They're going to have her make a big speech. That ties directly into Mon Mothma's appearance on Rebels, which is a kids show. So, like, okay, I'm sitting here thinking, you don't have to watch Young Jedi Adventures and Andor in the same sitting, but like, say you want to do a chronological thing, well, you would go straight from Andor season 2 to Rebels, the kids show, the cartoon.
From like one of the darkest episodes that we've seen so far to like, okay. You're so right about that, and this is like, again, this is one of the things that fundamentally irritates me about these enormous cinematic universes. Is they become so goddamn unwieldy and tonally dissonant from one another. And yeah, you do have stuff like that where it's like you just have to turn off part of the experience for yourself. You end up having to edit for them. Like, because there can't be tonal consistency between giant products like that. Of course, they're going to make some Star Wars shows for kids, but also it's inherently undermining because it, again, like, okay, this is a problem that you run into with stormtroopers. The stormtroopers becoming like the kids' toy, and like the stormtroopers being like the bumper sticker, the Imperial symbol bumper sticker, and I'm just like, you're driving around with the direct equivalent of a swastika. Yeah, like it's like not
the
a
501st Legion, the cosplayer group. They do like charity events and stuff, and they're dressed like just like the foot soldiers of a fascist regime.
It's an insane thing to think about, and it's absolutely deranged. And it's kind of a thing that's produced by these unwieldy. I'll put aside my other things that I've gone crazy over, like, for example, having to see Baby Yoda everywhere I turn like a nightmare.
I'll make you watch Mandalorian someday.
Look, I'm okay with I'm okay with the show, but when I go out in public and I turn to the left, I see a Baby Yoda. I turn to the right on the other side of a mall or whatever, and there's more Baby Yodas there. Life starts to take on a nightmarish quality.
I remember one time on stream, DemonMama, where I think somebody had brought up like Baby Groot, and you just like looked at the camera and said, "Fuck Baby Groot," and I was just like, "I will kill you." And I know it was because you stand
by my words.
You haven't seen Guardians 2, so like, okay,
I haven't. It's
like,
just,
like I understand from like the merchandising and marketing perspective. Hearing you talk about Baby Yoda, I was like, okay, that's where the fuck Baby Groot comes from, because she hasn't seen it, so she doesn't know that Baby Groot's an actual character, not just a merchandising device.
But like, that's the issue with something like Star Wars being like what it is and what it always has been. Like, the aesthetic of the stormtroopers looking fascist was intentional. Like, George Lucas did that shit on purpose, critiquing the American imperialism of the Vietnam War. And so with it having always been a politically charged action adventure fantasy series or like movies or whatever, like that's always been at the core of it, which is why I'm now becoming an adult fan of Star Wars, having like seen it as a kid but not cared about it, is because it does have interesting political points to make. But it's also a giant money-making machine for Disney. And necessarily, in order to have it be as maximally profitable as possible, they start selling all this merchandise. And this is like the political concept of recuperation, where, the product being sold to you is like a sanitized version of political revolution in that way, where, the opposite side, not the stormtroopers, but when you have like rebel fighters and X-Wings and stuff like that, those are like revolutionary messages being taken by the corporate entity, sanitized and repackaged and sold back to you. Similarly to like, what is her name? Kylie Jenner? Is it that one with the Pepsi commercial?
Pepsi commercial, yeah. The infamous Pepsi
the
commercial.
Big stupid thing during the George Floyd protests where Pepsi decided to capitalize on the imagery of political unrest to be like, our soda makes everybody happy and all friends again. Look at this, the cops and the protesters. So yeah, but we were talking about how Andor is kind of uniquely resistant to that. Like there is not very much in this series that can be marketed in that way, except like, okay, now we finally have stormtroopers at the end.
Oh God, I just had the worst thought.
Oh no.
Bix's rape action set piece. Just yeah, just have it. I think, in our last recording, I did look up and there was like one Andor set, and it was from the first arc of the first season. When Cyril sends the troops to go and arrest Andor, and that's more of just like a general action set piece. That's like okay, and the three minifigs are Andor, Cyril, and Luthen, and it's like okay,
it's a speeder.
It's not the Gorman Plaza with a bunch of minifigs of dead, bloodied Gormans, right? They didn't do that.
Which would be a beautiful set. Like it was a beautiful set, and it would be a beautiful Lego set, but don't do it, please.
Yeah, it's just, I do feel like this show does a pretty good job at maintaining a certain hostility to the norms of Disney, merchandising and all this stuff. And I'm not going to say that it's immune to recuperation. I would never say that. I think Disney is incredibly good at that, and especially as time goes on. Yeah, I think that it's resistant, and also it's incredible foresight and the effortless way in which every single time we talk about this show, something has just happened that is immediately relevant. We're recording this, in the dead center of August, and in the United States, as of yesterday, the president ordered the National Guard takeover of the Capitol, which is a hard to, it's hard to fully grasp the enormity of that, and also how much this exact show that we're talking about was talking about this earlier this year in scripts that were written years ago. That they were on the wavelength, and they knew what they were talking about, and they knew the patterns that they were talking about and why they wanted to talk about that and what they wanted to say. So I appreciate that about this show, even if I do know that there's a real good chance that 2 years from now, all of these characters are going to be woobified into my nightmares. We'll have, I don't know. Yeah.
We haven't got there yet, but we've already disclosed that, full spoilers for this season. Like the fact that the show ends with Bix having Cassian's kid. Like, I don't ever make anything with that kid. Don't turn them into a full character. That just leave that alone.
Please stop doing that.
Don't do not make Cassian's kid a legacy fucking character. Absolutely not. But somebody's tempted to. They wanna.
Yeah. Oh Lord.
Well, let's talk about Gorman. Why don't we?
Yeah. Let's talk about Gorman a bit.
Where do we want to start with Gorman? Do we want to because the way that the genocide itself is played out, like that episode is mostly just kind of like a prolonged action set piece, but there's still a lot of like the individual characters going through it. So like I kind of feel like we should start with Cyril, because this is the genocide episode basically ends with the end of Cyril's arc, and we see like this guy who has been such a true believer in order and justice, realizing very rapidly that what he was working toward was a lie, and just watching him quickly unravel. And like, I think had Cassian not been there, I think there was maybe a possibility for Cyril to actually like renounce the Empire and like join up, give information to the rebellion after what he saw. But he saw Andor, and he saw the guy who basically he blames for the path that his life, took, the destruction of his career. This guy who's this, murderer and anarchist who got away with it and ran away, and is like, oh my God, he's here. I finally have a target for all of my rage.
Yeah. Like, what if he hadn't met Cassian and instead he saw Rylance and was like, dude, I had no idea that this was going to happen and I'm pissed off and I'm ready to join you. But instead, the last interaction they had was Rylance being like, you're a fucking traitor. And so, yeah, like perfect setup to shoot him, even though I think, if his arc hadn't just ended, he would have probably joined the rebellion.
Yeah.
What kind of being are you? Incredible line delivery, incredible lines. Just what kind of being are you? I love how in this arc we see the full culmination of Cyril as the like dark reflection of Andor. That we see a character who is downtrodden in his own way. He has experienced incredible, weird trauma that other people can't understand, and yet he has this set of principles. His principles, of course, are completely distorted, and they are, unlike Cassian, which is like his, are extremely liberatory. They are borderline pure chaos, at times. And with him, he is pure order. It is all this hierarchical worldview that he believes in and navigates, and he believes in with his whole heart. And we get to see him confront that and where it takes him. And it takes him to a psychic break in which he just totally, his psyche completely breaks. Like we see this scene with him choking Daedra, which is an incredibly done scene. Just it is it's so good. It's so terrifying, and it's so raw and scary and weird, and also you're just kind of like, bro, yeah, she definitely deserves it. She's like sitting there getting defensive over her overstaying it. I know you do, but it's like, I'm happy that they didn't do it that way, because of course we'll get to that, but yeah, you go, oh my God, like this freak has the audacity to sit here and get defensive while she's literally sitting there knowingly being told you're the trigger, like, and like, or like, you're the finger, I'm the trigger. And it's like, yeah, you're going to be the one who makes the call to start this genocide. And she's just like, yeah, well, you liked the promotions, didn't you? And you're just like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Well, and Cyril, like I have this written down, Cyril goes, what are we doing here? And she says, following orders, like literally the Nuremberg defense. So
it's wild. And I liked that we get to see this sort of like the psyche collapse of somebody who is invested in a completely false structure with all their heart. And also then, of course, we get to see the culmination of his extremely strange, politically motivated and parasocial attachment to Cassian, with the whole like, who are you? Like,
devastating.
Yeah, incredible. It's just like, oh, like Cassian does not know this person, but this person is like a major force in weaponizing a faceless machine. The ego of Cyril, the human being Cyril, is utterly erased by the Imperial machine. Like, it's incredible how well done this whole part with Cyril is with regard to the series' overall discussion on what like Imperial machines do. That they erase individuals, they smash you into a number. That even when you are like the most incredibly motivated person who's like, I see this one injustice that I'm fixating on, you become no one. You become nothing. And when you inevitably freak out, you become nothing more than like a blaster stain. And the Empire continues to move on. It's incredible.
I will also say, I feel like it's a blink and you miss it kind of thing if you haven't recently rewatched season 1, but they have met before face to face. But Cass was like holding him at gunpoint, and that's also like
first arc, and that was like 3 years ago at this
forever
point.
ago. Yeah, if you haven't recently watched it, but we complained at the end of this arc when Melshi has the gun there. She's like, "Whose gun is this?" And we were like, "That feels a little forced." But here's what happened: that gun is the gun that Cassian stole off of Cyril in that scene, and then he had it with him on the Paradise planet.
Niamos.
Yeah, Niamos, and he like hid it above the shower, and then came back and got it, and then used it on Aldani. And yeah, so that's why, like, that has all the way back to the first arc of season 1.
Okay,
so I guess it feels a little bit less forced in that way.
Well, I guess if you go back and rewatch, but like in the moment, just watching, we talked about that scene in our last recording, but just it briefly, like that gun didn't get a lot of like direct, like massive pay attention to this prop in the first season, so to reintroduce it without even so much as like showing it in like the previously on Andor kind of a thing to set that up, it felt like, I don't know why she's picking up this gun, and there's Melshi, I guess.
Yeah, you might be like, oh yeah, I guess he did hand him a gun when they got back to Niamos, but like again, it's a blink and you miss it kind of thing.
It's a cute detail, and I do think that the Melshi reveal is hurt by the editing of that, because it comes in the middle of the fleeing from the, if I remember correctly, it comes in the middle of the fleeing from the Congress building, right? Like the Senate building. Am I getting it mixed up with another?
Was it in episode 8 or 9? I don't remember which. I think it might have been in episode 8. I think it might have flashed from like the genocide over to Melshi and then back to the genocide.
I think it was toward the end of the arc. So I think it was in episode 9.
Yeah, I think I feel like it was. I feel like it goes from the.
It was part of like a montage ending the arc.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It doesn't help it, and then of course, like having him kind of like peek out and be like, "Hello," like it's just kind of like, all right,
felt silly.
I don't know.
It's going to be so disappointing when I go back and watch Rogue One and go, "Oh, Melshi was also here," and that's the extent of his character.
Like things just happen because they're going to happen in Rogue One. This is the complaint that I have about this season. Is like, it just feels a little bit rushed.
You know, it's funny too because in rewatching Rogue One, there's actually quite a lot of very graceful connections through to Rogue One. Obviously, there's some tonal differences in Rogue One, especially with the presentation of Saw as a character. But the best example of this is Krennic. Krennic is like, if you rewatch Rogue One and then you rewatch Andor, you're just like, oh man, they enhance. The connection there enhances all of it. You just go like, everything about this guy checks all through the second season into the movie, and I'm like, they really did it. There was a great through line on Krennic, and I'm just like, oh man, that's great. But not everything has that. Yeah, he's amazing.
Great actor. Yeah, I love him.
God, he's incredible. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Senate arc.
Yes.
So I hadn't brought it up yet, but like as a note, I wasn't sure initially that they should have recast Bail Organa because Jimmy Smits was not available for shooting. And so they cast Ben Bratt, he's a good actor. I've liked him and stuff. I just didn't feel like my first watch through, I didn't feel like they had enough for Bail to do even merit recasting him, that they should have just given another senator who was sympathetic to the rebellion to work with Mon Mothma. But the scene with the Gorman senator being hauled away by stormtroopers, and he's shouting like, "Today it's me, tomorrow it's you," and the camera is focusing on Bail Organa the entire time. I'm like, yeah, okay, no, I get it.
That felt tasteful. That's a tie-in that feels tasteful.
Yes,
it's directly relevant to what's being talked about. It's saying, you can't possibly know this because that's how these things work. You can never know what the exact future holds, but they're displacing my entire planet and shooting a bunch of, people who are protesting. They're going to blow your entire planet up tomorrow. It's poignant, and I feel it works very well for, again, what this series is trying to do for the overall narrative of Star Wars.
I'm also glad they didn't have to do weird de-aging on an older actor.
Yeah. I'm always okay with.
I don't think they would have done that with Jimmy Smits anyway. Okay. They had him on Obi-Wan Kenobi a couple years ago.
Okay. I haven't watched all these shows.
I think they would have just stuck with current day Bail Organa. It's fine.
Yeah. I feel like Bail Organa is I will say he gets a bit of a I don't know, maybe it's just me, but he comes off as like a kind of unlikable character. And you do feel for him in those moments, knowing what happens. But also, it's just like, dude's team is compromised. He's It's not, they don't make it super clear how involved he is on Yavin. And of course, like, as we're going to get into later, he's kind of like this like stickler for process.
He's a little stiff.
Yeah, he kind of, you kind of get this idea. I mean, he's obviously there to serve as a contrast to Mon Mothma. We have a ton of time spent with her. We get to know her very well. She's incredibly sympathetic, and we see her in real time, you know, having this very realistic and extremely difficult to grapple with loss of faith in everything that she has been doing with her entire life. I mean, that's a huge part of her story through both seasons, is like how she grapples with the obvious death of the Senate meaning anything at all, besides being or rather, I should even say not meaning nothing at all, but rather becoming a complete tool of just reinforcing imperial power, where it's like, this is a sponge that soaks up energy and turns it back into propaganda. We see this with like all of the like 15 senators all going up and being like, the Gormans must be, you know, crushed and all this stuff. And they're all just towing that line on the national TV. And she's the only one, and they have to do it by means of this incredibly weird procedure call, like where it's just like,
oh, the Emperor's own council said that. Ooh. Yeah. So I feel like it was really cleverly played, as far as, you know, you can just make up bullshit rules and then invoke them for the sake of your TV show. But it's satisfying, and you go, it's nice to see them get stuck by their own things that they did to like be corrupt before. You know what I mean? Oh, and it's again with the guys locking the closet. Like that was, they were like, oh, well, it's supposed to be locked. Oh, Lamau, of course. We took the key upstairs, like just bureaucratically getting in the way.
Yeah, they are malicious compliance.
Obviously agents.
Yes. Yeah.
Little acts of rebellion. That's a great thing through this whole show, through both seasons, is they take a lot of time to show that, which is, to be fair, plays directly into what Nemec is saying, which is that there are small acts of rebellion that happen every moment that can have huge impacts. And I love that. I do really like the whole like Senate escape arc. Mm-hmm. There is this recurring theme throughout all of Andor. I've been thinking about this a lot and how it applies in a couple of different areas. And there's this whole thing with Luthen, and this discussion about trust and sacrifice, and also the relationship between the Luthen-style character, the guy who is 100%. There is nothing left of him except for, I need to make my thing win. He's like, I know that I have to use the weapons of my enemy to defeat them. I am fully consumed by this almost entirely, to the point that, you know, as we'll see in the next arc, we see where that goes. But then there's the Andor character. And in this Senate sequence, we see Luthen, the cracks in like Luthen's way, like his way and his time sort of coming to an end, in the sense that like when he connects with Mon Mothma, he's destroyed her ability to trust him, even though they made like the deepest oath. She's terrified of him.
Because
for good
there's
reason.
Every possibility that he will kill her. Like, I wouldn't put that past him.
Nope.
Yes, he is literally whatever he thinks is like, whatever he thinks will advance the agenda, he will do. And that's a terrifying position. And we see that, obviously, we know his intentions are good, but no one else really can fully. And also when he's juxtaposed towards Mon Mothma's like friend, who she does know, Organa, who is unfortunately somewhat incompetent on the espionage front, it ends up falling to Andor. And this brings out something that is like amazing about Cassian, and as a character, is just like his ability to connect with people. And it kind of shows how vital he really is to someone like Luthen, in a way that even Luthen doesn't fully acknowledge. You know, Luthen can see him, and he does at times. There's this, you know, there's this play throughout the whole season back and forth of like Luthen as a person having to dial it back and go, I'm going to lose this guy if I don't treat him like a human. But Cassian is always able to connect with people on that human level. And it is, he builds trust through that genuine nature. And so, of course, he's the one who's able to break through to Mon Mothma. And I love that. I love that they do that. And I just think it shines. as a part of what this series has to say. And it does tie into something I want to talk about later, but I want to keep on this. So if y'all have more to say on this, I'll wait for later for that.
It was Young's agent who was on the team, so that's how they got the information.
Yeah, Lonnie.
I feel like that's a relevant point.
Yeah.
One thing that I needs to point out is that the scripts for the show were written before 10/7, but like the way that literally just calling what is a genocide is seen as like a brave and dangerous act, when I think there's only been about 10 members of Congress who has actually used the words genocide to describe what's happening in Gaza, something that is painfully, blatantly, clear as day obvious to anybody with a set of eyes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
That it takes real courage for people who have a position of power to use that power to even put a name to it. Obviously, the fascism in the empire is far more down the line. We're still pretty early days into ours, but it's just, I don't know. Again, I have to point out this show was written before any of this happened. Obviously, Israel has been oppressing the Palestinian people for close to 100 years, but this specific element of it, the showrunners so like keyed into the tools of oppression and genocide and the ways that people are complicit and the ways that people with the power to speak out don't, due to cowardice or due to political ambition.
We even see that with the Gorman guy, right? Like his arm is twisted such that he can't even speak up at first about his own genocide of his own people until they're literally carrying him out. Yeah.
The whole like propagandizing is something that I wanted to get into that we hadn't talked about with, like, we kind of skipped over that part of the Gorman massacre, as well as like watching the narrative change in real time. Oh, and also, what I was about to say is we're doing political arrests now. So we're at a similar place as where they are in this, because Mothma's about to be
senators and congressmen be arrested by ICE.
And like there's the witch hunt now for the Democratic representatives who left.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so, for viewers who may not be familiar with what's going on, there is in the state of Texas, there is an attempt to aggressively gerrymander the state, a blatant, just unbelievably blatant.
And it's early. They're not supposed to redistrict for another several years.
Yeah, the redistricting would basically eliminate Democratic seats and create, I think, 25 new Republican seats, just granting a functionally eternal majority to one party that is currently in power in this state governance. The Democratic minority, who are being threatened with essentially being erased out of existence legally, have fled the state in order to prevent the vote from happening while they hope for federal intercession. And now the governor of Texas is attempting to arrest them, has sent out warrants for the arrest of state senators. It is deranged. Of course, this is also, once again, as I mentioned earlier in this very episode, the takeover of Washington, D.C. by the National Guard at the behest of the president. We are so in this timeline, it is unbelievable. It's hard to ignore any of it, and everything that this show has to say about what you do in those situations.
Even about like what a lot of certain Democratic leaders are doing. There was a line that stuck with me, and it was, "We are the Gore. If they take that from us, then what's worth saving?" And I look to these backstabbers like Pete Buttigieg and Gavin Newsom, who have decided that, sure, we can throw the transes on the pile. And it's like, at some point, why the fuck would people come out to vote for you if they are going to be oppressed either way? Why should we come out for you if you aren't even guaranteeing us that our lives will be tangibly better? Like, why should I fight for a society that wants me dead either way? You have to, you cannot compromise on this, because if you compromise on one people group, you'll compromise anywhere.
It breaks the trust. Can we just go someone who's like the opposite of Biden? I don't know. Let's not get on a whole thing, but Pritzker would be great.
Yeah. Who also ties in, and You know, he did order his state police to protect the fled Democratic senators. So hey, credit where credit is due on this specific issue.
Look, I don't want to say that Pritzker is the Mon Mothma of our era, but he is a very wealthy man who does seem to be using his wealth to fight fascism. So
yeah,
and he speaks out in support of trans rights. Like he was at the HRC recently giving a speech. Yeah.
Well, we can only hope Nemec's manifesto applies to our real world, and I do think it does. But yeah, to build off what you were saying about the narrative construction happening in real time, in that especially they pay careful attention to Cyril watching it unfold as he gets this info beforehand from Rylance, who's literally like smacking him aside the head and being like, "What's wrong with you? Can't you see?" It's especially poignant that it's Rylance, because Rylance is like the most conservative of the resistance group. He's like the one who's like the most reformist, and he's still like, oh my God, man, like you can't even see what they're doing. You know, so he sees this and then he walks up and he sees the line that he was just giving to Rylance being towed at once in unification across all of these news networks. It reminds me of the coverage of the George Floyd protests. It reminds me of watching the copy pasted. I mean, they literally, you can go see them on YouTube, the edits of all these different news channels, anchors from all over the country repeating the exact same lines, all in lockstep, exact word for word, same lines. You can edit them over each other and they speak with the same voice. It's horrifying to see how these propagandistic messages can be dispatched to build a specific narrative that can enable something horrible like this.
And keeping in mind too that this event, like this retaliation in the show, is predicated on a inside job, like where the ISB sent a bomb or something, and so they're like, oh, you can still see the vapor rising behind me. There was a terrorist attack, and so that's like justifying all these troops coming in. And then they open the plaza, and they know that there's going to be a protest there. And they shoot one of their own guys to start the like riot or whatever.
Massacre.
Yeah, the massacre. And there were like hundreds of videos, speaking of the George Floyd protest, like hundreds of videos. I was like following this one Twitter thread that kept getting added to of police initiating violence at the protests. That's called a police riot, babes. When the police are instigating violence at a protest, that's what it's called. And we saw it like literally hundreds of times, multiple different angles on a lot of these different attacks, and it's insane. And so, yeah, like we've talked about how this relates to what's going on in Gaza, but I feel like it's poignant enough that it's just talking about American fascism on American soil and the way that we treat American citizens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's trying to say it's the same. It's all the same organ. It's all one big machine.
Yeah.
There was this one clip from the George Floyd protests that broke my heart. And it was a man who was facing down a line of cops and just trying to reach their humanity, reaching out to them as people, saying that, like, you know, just talking about how there's all of these structures being built up to keep them apart, but that he sees them as human beings and that he loves them and they shouldn't want to do this. And they should be able to like literally he was being the most charitable of anybody on the planets to cops at that moment. Didn't raise his voice. I mean, while he was, you know, speaking passionately, he was projecting, and he was obviously upset, but he was not threatening. He was speaking a message of peace and love, and the cops fucking swarmed in and just yoinked him.
Yep.
And I showed that to somebody on Facebook back when I was still using Facebook. I was just like somebody who was defending the cops and all this. And I'm like, defend this. Like, look at this. And the guy just looks at it and immediately goes, well, I don't know the full situation. This is a very long uncut video. He's like, I don't know the full situation. Maybe that guy had done something elsewhere. And it's like, you pig fucker.
Yeah. There's like nothing you can say at a certain point.
Yeah.
What kind of being are you? That's
fucking true.
We have to use that line at the bar. That what kind of being are you?
It's a depressing part of the show. Just
let's touch on Bix's arc. We did a little bit. We talked about the Faith Healer, but we didn't really talk about that as it relates to Bix, because the Faith Healer thing is the impetus for Bix deciding to leave Cassian. because Cassian said he's done. He's out after this. He wants to go and retire with her. And it's almost kind of like, it's interesting that Vel is the one to come to Bix about it and saying that, like, she's concerned that Cassian isn't all in on it. Like, they were getting ready to promote him, and then he goes and takes the ship to Gorman without, approval or anything like that. And Vel is basically going to Bix and asking Bix to be the Cinta, to be the one who prioritizes the rebellion over the relationship.
Wouldn't it have been cool if they had ever had a conversation before that?
It would have. Yeah.
Yeah, that does seem like another. We run into a couple of these moments where it's like the compression problems. It's very clear that through just the context that's given in these episodes, that there is supposed to be a lot of time. I mean, there's literally years in which Vel and Wilman and Bix and Andor are just living life doing shit on Yavin. And we just don't see that because we only see it in snippets and in like loose implication. And it does lead to some awkward moments where if there had been a little more development time for the whole story, we could have seen more moments like that. And I would like that because I think that Vel's role in this, especially in the next arc, when we get to talking about Clea, there is something that is just like it is stuck in my mind so hard that I can't wait to talk about. Vel's arc in all of this is so good. And I think Bix is as well, but both of them could have used more room to breathe.
It feels like Bix isn't there to be a rebel. It feels like Bix is there to be Cassian's girlfriend. And like, she's skilled. She was working with Luthen long before Cassian came into the picture. She's been in this fight longer than he has. And what's she doing on Yavin? There's all sorts of jobs to be done, but she's just hanging out in her yurt. She's got engineering experience. She should have been the one to fix up K2 and bring him to life, By the way,
she could be working at the shipyard.
Completely side note, but the scene with K2 when they put his head back on makes such a satisfying heavy metal clink. Like, just listen to that. Completely unrelated to anything, but I had to bring it up because it felt so satisfying. But yeah, like, what is Bix doing aside from being upset about Cassian and like, I don't know, recording vlog entries in her yurt?
She's having spooky dreams of the Force and telling Cassian that he's such a special boy and that he has to stay in the fight, and then taking away his agency at the end.
Yeah.
Yay.
Okay. I'm gonna be.
Like I'm just gonna. Everybody needs to know I don't like Bix, and DemonMama doesn't like this opinion of mine, and it's okay.
It makes me. I am the number one Bix defender, and I will be the number one Bix defender. If everyone is dead or whatever that is, there is no more Bix defenders because I'm also dead or something like that. Whatever it is, I don't remember the line, but the whole thing with Bix. Okay, so I don't 100% disagree with the idea that it would have been better. I think the show should have given more room to Bix for various things. That said, while I do agree with that, I don't agree with the rest of the stuff towards Bix, and I'll explain why. This is something I've thought about like a lot. So first off, I think that Bix's role is supposed to be all of Andor season 1 and season 2 is a show that's taking a look at different types of rebels. And we've brought up all these different examples, like down to the people who, oops, we left the key upstairs, teehee. There is all these different types of rebels and ways of being a rebel that are explored and displayed and talked about. And I do think that Bix represents a type of rebel that is particularly vulnerable, a type of rebel who is not fully capable of being like the main agent and actor in all of these high-level dangerous schemes. And I think it's that she has a role there that's important. And also it shows, obviously, Cassian is the main character of the show, so we're always going to see a lot of characters through his perspective. But she serves to keep him in touch with his own humanity at multiple points. Additionally, I do think that Bix's arc is a direct parallel to Marva from season 1, and that this is intentional and that is designed to reveal something about Andor and also about the writers as a team, the Gilroys and I think these 3 episodes were all written by Dan Gilroy, if I'm not mistaken, but their belief about rebellion and empire. So both Marva and Bix have this moment with Andor where they basically say, I'm not running anymore. There is nowhere else to go. I'm not going to do it anymore. With Marva, it's I'm old. I'm tired of this. I have had so much stolen from me. I don't care if I die. With Bix, it's if I'm going to give up everything, then we have to win. Promise me this. And then they also have a moment where the thing that makes Andor so good and so amazing and heroic as a character is that he does actually care about why people rebel. They rebel because they have things that they love in their life. And he isn't Luthen. He can't hollow himself out completely for a cause in that way. And because of that, they both face this moment with Andor where he's like, we can go somewhere. There's still places we can go. I can hang up my hat and give to what I really need to. And they both have to be like, no, I realize that your nature is going to drive you to make the decision that is well-intended but wrong. The Gilroys throughout this series have this view that fascism forces us to make sacrifices. I think there's something about Bix that's very essential and important.
Yeah. So I agree that Bix represents like a certain kind of character in this show. And that like, I recognize that I do have an issue sometimes with like characters with PTSD who are more on the shutting down side of the spectrum. So I recognize that. But also like, I think my biggest issue with Bix is that like, it's all this like, oh, trust me, bro, it happened off screen stuff that we get with her. And it's like, I agree that she would be a good, interesting character if she had been given the space to be that. And like, people probably will regard it as somewhat problematic that I really, really, really like Dedra Meero, and I feel bad for her at the end of the story. But I think that that's because she's a well-crafted character who you feel things for, because you see her really struggle with her decisions and like also deal with the consequences of her decisions. Whereas like what we have with Bix is, okay, she's traumatized. Sure. Yes, there's a period of time where she kind of shuts down. She gets on drugs, whatever. So she's not very like compelling in that moment. But I don't really see her struggle with it. Like, I don't really see her dealing with any tension of like I feel bad for doing this or whatever. And then like when we get her sort of snapping out of it, we've already talked about this, I think, that it happens off screen with her. More or less off screen with her killing Gorst or driving him insane.
The yada that whole sequence.
Yeah,
that was just
we don't see how that's
this
planned.
Is the last minute.
Yeah, there's no emotional struggle for her. There's not really any emotional payoff for her because we don't really get to see like lingering close shots of her emotional process, which I think is what makes a character relatable. That's what makes Cinta and Vel so compelling, is we get all these very intimate shots of them like interacting, and there's tension and then their decisions and their interactions. And I just feel like Bix doesn't possess any of that when we should be like, we expect it. Like, that's my problem, I think, is I'm expecting a little bit more like meat on the bones for her personal struggle, or like, the fact that they gave her weird dreams as her compelling reason to be like convincing Cassian that he needs to stay in the shot, like stay in the, the ring or whatever. It's just very lazy writing is what
I think it's less than like, I just think that like the dreams are not the operating factor. She has her moment in Coruscant where she says, if we're going to do this, we have to win. You have to promise me we're going to win.
That doesn't preclude her from being willing to leave the the rebellion later.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it's not well fleshed out, which makes it bad, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't know. I do think that there is less. I mean, I do find it odd to draw the comparison to Cinta when we see Cinta on screen for like a grand total of like 2 minutes of screen time.
And it's more compelling than most of Bix.
I mean, I disagree, but I mean, I understand. Cinta is a instrumentalized character from the film, from the filmmaking perspective. She serves a very specific and limited thing. She is very much a part of Vel and subservient to Vel in that way. And I don't know, like,
I kind of see Cinta as like a harbinger, an angel of death. That's definitely how she appeared in her first shot when she's going to kill Tay. But
absolutely. Yeah, and I don't think that it's bad necessarily. It's just like, I don't disagree with you about the fact that I think that Bix lands in an awkward position compared to other characters in the show, in that she's given an incredible amount of screen time and yet not as much that's her personal story to do, which I don't disagree with that. I don't know that, like, comparing her to Daedra is the main villain. Daedra is the Darth Vader of
I'm just saying, like, if there's a criticism of me being like, why do I like Daedra so much versus why do I hate Bix so much? Like,
well, it's
I
obviously
think
because you're a fascist. Like, clearly.
Well, yeah, of course.
It's obvious.
Excuse me. It is this is Star Wars. It is okay to like the fascist villain. Darth Vader is very popular, and I think Darth Vader is probably responsible for more deaths than Daedra. And I haven't gone dressed as Daedra for Halloween, but I have gone dressed as Darth Vader. So, like, just pointing that out there.
It is hard to say, though, because Darth Vader, despite being Darth Vader, he didn't secure the deep underground foliated calcite, and Daedra did. And we know that the thing wouldn't have run if it wasn't for the foliated calcite. So maybe she actually has a higher kill count.
Well, no, because he was also involved in the Death Star plans, and also, like, you get to see him just like directly hunting down Jedi in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's definitely, like, Daedra is like, she's got career ambitions and she's doing a job, especially in Obi-Wan Kenobi, Vader is there just for like the pure, like, sadistic punishment and control of fascism.
Yeah, that's true.
I do also think Daedra and Bix are comparable because they both do a very good job in some ways of portraying like a full scope of female experience. Like, we get to see sexual violence, and we get to see like stalking and like the ramifications of deciding to date your stalker. Like, so they both are like the women who we get the most screen time with, aside from like Mon Mothma. And they both, I think, do a good job of hitting a lot of different bases of like, here's what realistically being a woman is like in this system on opposite sides, really. They're kind of like foils sort of to each other, but like they also have a lot of similarities in their storyline, so they parallel a bit. And I just think that one of them, I don't want to give it to the actors. I don't want to necessarily say that like Denise is just a better actor. But I'm laying it at the hands of the writers.
I see what you're saying with the, like, I mean, in the same way that Cassian and Cyril are dark mirrors. I think are Bix, but with that in mind, that also does make sense that you would have Daedra as the disempowered, marginalized woman who copes by becoming a sadistic, dominance obsessed career hound versus the disempowered, marginalized woman who copes by doing her best and ultimately making a sacrifice for the greater good. I don't think that it's like beyond reproach, and I don't think you're wrong in that way. I get so sad when you hate Bix, but it's just, that's my personal Bix defense. But I do.
She's a woman who was written by men. So I think it's okay to have a little bit of shade on the men who. Yeah, well, but I know.
By the same men, even.
By the same men. It's just like not to throw the accusation of the friend who's too woke, but it's like, it is like a woman who has PTSD and can't cope with it very well and decides that I actually want to be a mom on a planet is like a real type of woman, and that's okay. It's okay to be a cis woman.
Put more of it on screen.
I think DemonMama's winning me over. There are a lot of women in this show, and we get a very broad variety of women. And hot take, but women can suck sometimes too.
Just put it on screen. Like, just have there be more tension for her. Like, I don't know. It just feels like it's very flat, her representation of that role, which I think is a good thing to represent. I just don't like this way that they did it.
I get you. I also just, we could probably go back and forth about this forever, but also people like to hear it, I'm sure. But it is like, I think it's supposed to be a little sad. Like, you're supposed to have that part of you that aligns with Cassian and goes, God, like, I want to give up the rebellion for this person. It's not fair. And it is true. She was in, quote unquote, in the fight, but she was in the fight because she was looking for a job. She didn't really she had that rebellious spirit, just like the rest of the characters on Ferrix, but she just needed to pay her bills. And, and it was like, and then it became, she got pulled into this nightmare that resulted in her getting tortured. And another character we see this with is Willman. And, Willman is a character who's equally fucked up. And to his credit, he has similar screen time. And he does get one of the coolest scenes, the Rhino breathing scene.
Yeah.
Which is great. But I think that he has
Willman
some
gets
similarity.
to do. Willman gets to gets to hook up with cute girls and huff gasoline fumes.
It's true. But I'd say their screen time is a little less on Willman than on Bix, and I don't know, whatever. Like I said, we could talk about it forever, but I will be a Bix defender. I think she's great. So
I respect it.
It's fair. Oh, we didn't talk about K2.
Oh, well, there's not much to say with K2 yet. Like,
yeah,
I feel like you just did.
Yeah.
Things that happen because it needs to happen.
Yeah. Also, Alan Tudyk, he just keeps playing robots. Has anybody noticed? Because
he's good at them, right?
Because he was literally the robot in iRobot, and he's K2. There was like at least one.
Isn't Zachary Quinto also consistently playing robots?
I don't know because I don't like Zachary Quinto, so I try not to pay attention to him anymore.
Is he the Spock?
Yeah, he's Spock, and he voices robot.
Oh, sorry, not
Invincible.
Zachary Quinto. God, why did I take back what I said? I was not thinking of Zachary Quinto. I was thinking of Zachary Levi.
Zachary Quinto for no reason.
No, I like Quinto. Zachary Levi. The what's his face? He played Shazam. That guy sucks. Quinto's fine as far as I can tell. Oh yeah, no, that was in Superman. Alan Tudyk voiced Robot 4, or also known as Gary.
God.
So yeah.
We should do Superman. We should do Superman. Please, it's so good. I love that movie.
Well, we'll see what next. I think after this, I wanted to do. I still needs to figure out what we're doing after this one.
We're gonna do something Halloweeny, right?
Yeah, but like, there's a lot of options there, and I was thinking maybe doing an Ari Aster thing. There was a new Ari Aster movie that just came out, so maybe we'll do that.
Ari Aster would be cool. Cronenberg. Cronenberg. Also, if we want to do trash, Nightmare on Elm Street, man, we'd have so much discourse to say about those.
I've never watched those. I have never seen a Nightmare on Elm Street, so
I haven't since I was a kid, and my dad was irresponsibly letting me watch horror movies.
Those movies are fucked up and not
to let your kid watch.
I think the first horror movie that I watched, even my dad just like picked it up so that we could watch it. Didn't realize it was horror. It was Event Horizon.
Shit!
I was 14, and God, I had nightmares for days. Yeah, that's because it's a sci-fi. So I thought it was, it's a sci-fi thing. No, that is a horror movie.
In it. Nope. Oh no. All
right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us and listening. I've been Gayfesh.
I'm Moss.
And I'm DemonMama.
And we will catch you next time for the finale of Andor. Bye!